Welcome back to another We Ourselves video. Today I want to talk about the representation in the Ahsoka series, but not of the female characters, but of the male characters. One of the central plot elements of the Ahsoka series is the existence of the Purgils, or as the Night Sisters call them, the Travelers. Now, in the original series, Ezra demonstrated a profound ability to communicate with all types of creatures, and particularly these space whales. In the Season 2 episode entitled The Call, we are first introduced to the Purgils. Almost immediately, Ezra demonstrates an ability to hear and later to communicate with the creatures. By the conclusion of the episode, Ezra is able to actually ride on the back of one of the creatures, as well as convince them to help the Ghost Crew escape their predicament. During the events of the Rebel series finale, Family Reunion and Farewell Part 2, Ezra is able to corral the space whales into wrapping themselves around Grand Admiral Thrawn's Star Destroyer and warping the ship himself and Thrawn into another galaxy. Ezra showed an amazing ability to communicate with the Purgils, yet in the Ahsoka series, his affinity to use the Force and communicate with creatures like the Purgils is very rarely mentioned, and when done so, only in passing. Now, for the casual Star Wars viewer who comes to the show, there's nothing else to explain Ezra's spectacular feat. All the focus is on Ahsoka as if she's the only one who can do it. Now, in episode 6 of the Ahsoka series, we find out that the Night Sisters were able to tame and harness these space creatures and use them to journey to other galaxies. And of course, the Night Sisters are a culture of women. However, in the original Clone Wars animated series, we learned that the Night Sisters had a male faction, which is where the character of Darth Maul comes from. But we don't know if Dave Filoni is going to carry that over into the live-action series or not. So in my opinion, what we have here is a not-so-subtle emphasis on the women, Ahsoka and the Night Sisters, being the only ones who can communicate with the Purgils. And as a result, this pushes Ezra's abilities and what he accomplished into the background. Keep in mind, Ezra's actions at the end of the Rebel series is used as the setup for the Ahsoka series. Grand Admiral Thrawn being in another galaxy and the main characters having to journey there to find and stop him all depended on what Ezra accomplished in the Rebels animated series. It's a subtle thing if you don't know to look for it or if you just overlook it. The male characters have been relegated to the background so that the women can be the only ones who really shine in the series, in my opinion. For example, we see this dynamic play out with Baylan and Shin. Except for a couple of lightsaber fights with Ahsoka, Baylan basically stands around and delivers really awesome dialogue. I like his character, but when it comes to engaging in action, Shin has had the most fight scenes in the series. The same thing happens with Sabine. Every other episode, she's in a fight scene and shows off her skills and abilities. Likewise, the same happens with Ahsoka. Of course, it's her series, but we get to see her using her fighting techniques. Now, outside of Baylan and later Thrawn, there are very few male characters in this series. As I mentioned in the previous video, Hera's son, Jason, is Force sensitive and actually demonstrates his ability in the 5th episode. But when he asks Hu Yang, the Jedi robot, about training, the droid says no to him. Why? Why didn't Hu Yang say, "That's up to your mother," or suggest that Jason go and study with Luke Skywalker? Jason's a legit Force user and he's the son of a Jedi. He is the logical person to train, but it's really clear that the male characters are either non-existent or if they are present, they take a solid back seat to the exploits of the women in the show. And that brings me to Ezra Bridger himself. Although I liked Ezra's inclusion and how the character was portrayed by the new actor, the introduction and the reunion with Sabine felt awkward to me. As I already mentioned, his exploits, particularly with the Purgils, has been downplayed to just being a throwaway line in one episode. It seems like nobody really wants to talk about what he actually accomplished. I don't know what they're going to do with the characters in the second season, but Ezra's entrance was lackluster. There's also another missing story with Ezra. How did he escape from Thrawn in the first place? We never get a scene where he explains that burning question, as well as what he's been doing over the last 10 years or so. And when Ezra makes it on board Thrawn's ship and returns to the main Star Wars galaxy, he once again escapes from Thrawn's ship. Yet, what could have been an interesting sequence, a sequence, by the way, that could have also served as characterization for people who are new to Ezra, we don't see the escape. The character never gets a full on-screen explanation of what has happened to him. Ezra, who had real face-to-face interactions with Thrawn, is never in the same room with his nemesis. Yet Ahsoka, who never met Thrawn in the Rebels series, is the most adamant about stopping Thrawn now. Yet she never meets him face to face either. I disagree with people who say the show needed Ahsoka's name instead of calling it Rebels in order to get more viewers. If that's the case, why do we have shows like Skeleton Crew and The Acolyte coming out? Those shows are not relying on a known Star Wars character name in the title to promote them. The Ahsoka series should have been the Rebels live-action series and served as the first of the series of new Star Wars shows that didn't use single character names in the titles. And finally, the Ahsoka series should have been about something else, namely the Mortis Gods storyline. Had Disney listened to George Lucas and used his reported Son of Mortis storyline for The Rise of Skywalker, rather than have a returned Emperor Palpatine, the Ahsoka series would have had the perfect villain. Even more importantly, Ahsoka's ending story arc would have remained unique to her character, included Anakin's Force Ghost, and logically led to Rey and the sequel movies. But that was never to be. So anyway, those are my feelings on this particular matter. I find it sad that some still believe that in order to elevate one group, you have to dial back another. If you are a casual Star Wars viewer, or if you have never seen the Rebels animated series, I urge you to go and watch it. There's more of an equality of storylines for the characters. And although Ezra served as the audience POV character in the beginning, Rebels wasn't an all Ezra or even an all Kanan show. Sabine had her ups and downs and sub-story arcs. Hera had her ups and downs. Zeb, who you don't even see in the Ahsoka series, which is really sad by the way, he had his sub-arcs. Even Agent Kallus, who was an Imperial officer before working for the rebellion as Fulcrum, he had his time to shine in his sub-arcs. It's what equal representation and good storytelling is all about. The Ahsoka series is a pale imitation of what Dave Filoni accomplished with Rebels. And it starts to make me think that the more hardline fandom may be right when they say he sold his soul to the devil, because he's eviscerating Rebels, his own creation, in order to make the Ahsoka series. Well, that's it for me. Let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, like and subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next video.